Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to our training today. Sorry, I'm sitting in the dark. We have really damp, cloudy weather here today, and so my office is really dark. But we are going to be diving in just a second. So let me go ahead and share my screen here, and then we'll go over just a few housekeeping tips so that everybody gets the most out of our webinar today. So if you are joining for the first time on Zoom, you need to know that you want to shut down, turn off anything else that's streaming. So if you have something like Google Drive open, Spotify, Netflix, any of those streaming services, turn those off. They take up bandwidth and make the pipeline for your stream smaller. So you want to have the maximum available bandwidth for the live stream while it's going on. So turn off all of those other things. If, like me, you are a real bad tabber, meaning you have lots and lots of tabs open on a regular basis on your browser, close all of those that you don't need, because each one of those tabs also takes bandwidth. It keeps refreshing and sending data back and forth. So close down anything that's not necessary. If for some reason you lose the signal, you either lose the sound or the picture, what you'll need to do is to hop off and hop back in. So close the window, log off, and log back in. That usually takes care of it. Sometimes in fact, most often it's a browser error, and you may need to close your browser and restart it. So double check on that. Worst case scenario, you may need to restart your computer. That happens sometimes, and the temporary memory gets full, and it doesn't have enough memory to load both the audio and the video at the same time. So if anything goes wrong, step one is to log off and log back in. Step two is to restart your computer. So go through that process and you should be golden. If you have a question that you know you want to ask about websites, feel free to go ahead and type that into the chat roll right now so you don't forget it. If you're not sure where the chat roll is, it's going to be down here at the bottom. You'll see a little idea bubble with 3 dots in it. And if you click on that, the chat roll will pop up on the right-hand side if you're joining via a computer. It may be down below if you're joining via a smart device. So if you're joining via something like a tablet or a phone and you're holding it vertically, the chat roll can be down below and you'll need to scroll down to find it. So make sure that you know where that is. And the way it works is you type your question into the little box that says, ask your question here. So I will open it up and read it exactly. It says type message here. So if you type your message in there, then I'll see it and everybody else will see it as well. Occasionally, an option to submit via Q&A, which is kind of like raising your hand, will show. Don't use that because I'm the only one that'll see that. And I think one of the real huge benefits of being in a group call like this is that you get to see each other's questions. So we really want everybody to use the chat roll to share back and forth, and feel free to comment with anybody else on there as well. Yeah, it's different on whatever device you've got, Sally. So it could be up on the top, it could be on the bottom or down below. It just depends on what device you're joining from, whether it's an Android or an iPhone or an iPad or any of those other things. So we're going to be talking about websites. And I see Christine on the call, and Christine thinks she doesn't need a website. And I'm telling Christine directly she does. Everybody in the membership needs a website. So it doesn't matter whether you're thinking about selling or you're thinking about creating a portfolio or just being able to hold yourself accountable. All of those things work when you have a website. So there's no reason not to start now. Websites are one of those things, kind of like an email list, that is best started a year ago, not tomorrow and not next year. So get it started now. There are lots of easy options out there, and we're going to go over some of those today so that you'll hop in there and get going. So I wanted to share a handout first. Let me hop over onto that. And I'm going to post this on the event page underneath the link to join, and it'll be over where the recording is as well. So let me switch the share here. So this is a check sheet that I use in my course called The Painter's Business. So can everybody see that check sheet now? It should be showing. Hopefully it is. So yes, excellent, Catherine, thank you. So the checklist is a way of assessing where you are in your art business. And everybody I know, almost everybody I know, there are always going to be exceptions. Almost everyone I know who paints dreams at some point of painting and having somebody love what they've done so much that they want to pay for it. That means that you aspire to have an art business, even if it's just this big. There's nothing wrong with it being this big, but don't sell yourself short and think it's something that you can't do, because you can. But one of the important things to do is figure out where you are in the stages of developing an art business. So I sometimes divide it into 4, but I've got it into 3 here because I think that kind of encapsulates where almost everybody is based on that poll that I took in the group earlier. Stage 1 is awareness. It means that you're building awareness of who you are and what you like to do. So it's a branding stage. It's a list building stage. It's building your email list. It's getting established on social media platforms. So you want to ask yourself whether you have a series of related paintings with some good photos. You need to have some good photos of those. They don't have to be professionally done. They can be shot with your iPhone or your Android. Those have really good cameras on there. So if you're careful about how you do it, it is possible to take good photos that way. So you need a series of related paintings. In other words, they don't all have to be the same subject, but they need to connect in some way so that they begin to look like the same person did them. If you feel you don't have a distinctive style yet, and a lot of people worry about that, then connect them via subject matter and medium so that people can see where you are right now. Second thing you want to do is have a bio and an artist statement. That needs to be on your website. Lets people know who you are and why you want to make art. It doesn't have to be, in fact, it shouldn't have lots of big art speak words in there. I taught senior level painting and graphic design and photography for years. And one of the assignments that my students had to do was to write their artist statement. And I know Stephanie is listening right now as well. Y'all know who Stephanie is, Stephanie Marita. Stephanie was one of my students. Stephanie had to do that too. But writing an artist statement when you're in college or when you're in graduate school is really different than writing your artist statement for the general public. It's a totally different audience. So be aware of that audience and think about who you're writing for. You want people to understand things. You don't want them to be confused and feel silly or even worse, stupid. So don't use buzzwords that other people might not understand. Try to speak as honestly and authentically as you can. Big one there is, do you have a website? And I know a lot of y'all don't yet based on the poll, and that's okay. We're going to walk through how you can get that going. It should not be so intimidating as it is for a lot of people. There are free options that will absolutely hold you and do you fine for just a little while. I don't want you to stop there, but there are definitely free options out there. And then there are a whole range of other options that go up the ladder depending on how tech savvy you feel. So there are options that don't require you to be a techie at all. So don't worry about that part of it. But we need everybody to get to work on getting a website. So your answer might be no, but I'd rather you say not yet, and I'm working on it. Do you have a Facebook business page or an Instagram business page? You need to get those started as well. Do you have a secondary media channel? That would be like Instagram or Pinterest. Stage 2, and we have some people in the membership who are at stage 2. They've already got a website. They've already got at least most of those things that we talked about in stage 1. It's engagement. It's when you begin to reach out and begin to dialogue with potential collectors, dialogue with an audience. It's audience building. So stage 1 is awareness. Stage 2 is engagement and audience building. So you want people coming to your website, engaging with you, commenting. You want people hitting reply on your emails so that you begin to talk to people, because people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. So if you're already blogging, fabulous. This is a great spot to be at. Not quite up to once a week yet. Going to push you to really do that. That's one of the things that will make your website more visible to more people. So Catherine is asking, do the pages have to be business pages? To really be of most benefit, yes, they do. And for 2 reasons. Number 1 is it's a violation of Facebook and Instagram terms of service to offer things for sale on your personal page, on your profile, when it's personal. So if Facebook catches you with a $, or even talking about too closely what offering a piece for sale on your personal profile, they can shut you down. And I've known people that happen to. So don't violate Facebook's terms of service. That would not be a pleasant thing. It's really hard to get back in once you've gotten booted out. You might get a warning at first, but they tend not to. They tend to just shut people down. So don't violate their terms of service. You can post your paintings and you can talk about your paintings, but you can't offer them for sale. Not that you really should be going buy my painting on Facebook at all anyway, because it's really better as a channel to lead people into your website. But you need to avoid at all costs talking about money on your personal profile. I know there are lots of people that get away with it, and they get away with it for a little while, but not forever. So just be careful there. Instagram, their terms of service are pretty strict as well. And one of the other reasons, besides that it violates terms of service, is that you get lots more options when you convert it to a business page. Instagram, it's really easy. You just basically flip the switch and they'll convert your personal to a business. But you can very easily start another one and use the same name on both, like Mary Gilkerson Art is my Facebook one, and Mary Gilkerson Art is my Instagram one. So the handle stays the same. Yeah, the items listed for sale on your personal profile really goes back to like selling washing machines and dishwashers and stuff. They do that in groups too, and I know that it's contradictory, but they can still come and get you. So I just wouldn't do it. It's just not a good idea. Facebook does some weird stuff. I've never understood why they force the for sale thing in there as a default option in groups, because then the groups just become really spammy real fast. So just be careful with that. I wouldn't do it. So I would separate out your personal and your business. For one thing, on your personal page, you're going to be talking about things like children's birthday parties, what the dog ate last night, what the cat did, and that kind of stuff. While in small doses is interesting to customers, it's not in the long haul. So they want to know a little bit of that, but they don't need to see what Aunt Fanny did on your sister Susie's birthday. So be really careful with that part of it as well. The other things to think about at the engagement stage, besides blogging often, is posting on your social media channels more often, emailing your list more often, and asking meaningful questions in those posts and responding to the answers. So notice that all of those have to do with getting out there, putting yourself out there, and then dialoguing with the people who talk to you. That's how you find your market. So that's another reason to start that website now so that you can begin building a market. And there's some more sophisticated things you can do with ads that we talk about in the business course. But for right now, know that if you have that website and you get the Facebook pixel on it, you can start building some audiences on Facebook that you can advertise to. So not to go down that rabbit hole too much. Adriana says, what's a good category for an Instagram business page? As close to art as you can get. Now, I know some of those categories don't apply very well. You could go into entertainment, tends to be the one that the arts get put in. So that one is fine as well. Catherine says, what are some examples for questions to post? Think about the questions that I post in the membership to get y'all talking. Those are the kind of questions. So for example, if you wanted to begin to explore the kind of things that your potential customers like and what they think and where they spend time, you could ask them what their favorite art movie is. Lots of people have seen The Agony and the Ecstasy with Charlton Heston in there. Lots of people have seen movies that have to do with the arts. Think about Vincent and Theo. But that gets a dialogue going and people can start a conversation. Think of it as being the kind of questions you would ask if you walked into a party. So think of your online presence of any sort as being an online cocktail party that you're hosting. So if you're hosting a party, a dinner party, because you don't want to think about it as being really large, you're talking to one specific person at a time. So tailor what you say to what you would say to somebody who walked into your studio or walked into your home to have dinner. So think about what they might ask you. They might ask you, why do you paint fruit? Say if you paint still lives of fruit. I used to paint still lives of pears. I love Bosc pears to paint because they have really interesting shapes, because they're almost human in a lot of their qualities. And when you combine them together, you can make these really sort of groups that talk and dialogue with each other. So you can think about the questions people might ask, and you can ask them the same ones back. So ask them what their favorite exhibition that they've been to recently is, or have you been to an exhibition? Have you been to a museum lately? Have you been to a gallery? Do you have any local galleries? Make a list of questions and put them on a piece of paper or in a notebook somewhere so that you can use those as kind of conversation starters. And you can post those on your Facebook page. You can post them to Instagram. You can post them to Pinterest. You can post them all kind of places. You could use those questions and then the answers you get from them to go over to Pinterest. So that's just an idea of some kind of questions to ask. But basically, you want to make it comfortable and easy for them to respond, but something more than yes or no. So don't ask them, do you like art? Because that's a yes or a no or a maybe question. So you want to pull some things out. So think about you are having a dinner party and the person attending is the shyest person you have ever met. And you just love them dearly and you want them to have a good time. So you're going to try to invite them to participate and sit next to somebody that's charming and interesting so that they won't feel anxious or bored. Lots of people are nervous about buying their first artworks because they've been intimidated. You know, galleries can be intimidating, especially if you're not used to buying. So you want to make it open and conversational and very easy and make yourself approachable. Now, don't go handing out your personal information to weirdos. I don't mean that open, but make it open so people feel comfortable asking you questions about what you do. The final stage, final, makes it sound like you're done when you get there, and it's not. The third stage is conversion. And by conversion, I mean you're taking them from the spot of being an engaged audience member to being a buyer. So that's the stage where you're concerned about selling. And I know a lot of people don't feel like they're there yet. You'll get there a lot faster than you realize. So when you're at that conversion stage, you're thinking about who your ideal customer is. And if you've been listening to the answers that people are giving you in stage 2, you should have some of that information. So then you want to think about how you're pricing your work. Is it easy to purchase? Do you have a shopping cart on your website? So you need to start tweaking your website to make it easy for people to buy. So do you have at least 300 people on your email list? Because you pretty much have to hit 300 on your email list, or 300 to 500 on one of those social media channels, to really have enough critical mass to begin to sell online. Doesn't mean you can't have a one-off sale, but it's going to be easier to promote when you hit that level of tribe, when you begin to really have that many followers. Then think about whether you've written an email series that leads to a sales offer. And what I mean by that is that you want to use those questions, like when you are having that conversation at the dinner party, to lead people to the idea that your work is buyable. So you don't immediately, when you walk into a cocktail party, go, "Hi, my name is Mary, buy my painting." Because you know what is going to happen if you do that. People are going to go, "Oh my Lord, she's weird," and head for the hills. So you want to begin to explore what they're interested in and move slowly towards that sales conversion. So Catherine says, how do you collect 300 emails? I've gotten to 90 in 2 years. Lots of people start there. 90 is pretty darn good. And you've probably been growing that really organically. So kudos, you've got 90. You've already started your email list. Lots of people are not there yet. I had an email list of 37 for a really long time. And I was looking at some of my numbers last night when I was teaching a course here in town. And I had back in this time 3 years ago, I think my email list had 1,600 people on it, on this one particular segment that I was talking about. It had 3,000 on the other, but this was the one I was presenting on. And I thought I had really hit a plateau because I'd hit 1,000 and gone over it. And it's 10 times that size now. So once you hit a certain point, then it begins to grow a whole lot more easily. So the way you get more email subscriptions is you make it easier for people to subscribe, and you offer them something that's an enticement to subscribe. One of the things that's an unenticement to subscribe is the idea of an email newsletter. So I want you to eradicate newsletter from your lexicon of words. People don't want to get an email that's all about us. They want an email that entertains them, that's more about them. So the first mistake that lots of people make with email is that they spend the whole email writing about themselves and their accomplishments. That's really not going to sell art. It's a huge, big mistake. What sells art is connecting on a gut emotional level. A recitation of your latest awards does not connect with people on a gut emotional level. So when you start writing content that begins to connect with people and make them feel a certain way, make them feel good, make them feel connected, make them feel wanted, and whatever that word might be that is your big why to paint, when you start making them feel that way, you will have attracted the tribe that is going to be interested in your work, and they'll be eager to open your emails to see what you're working on. One of the easiest things to send is your latest painting. So you might do a painting a week and send out the story of that painting. It's a little awkward at first when you start writing that way, but you get over that really fast. The other problem with newsletters is that they're too long. People writing a monthly newsletter write this thing this long without that long list of where they've been and the awards they've won. And people don't spend that much time on email anymore. You've lost them after pretty much the first 15 lines, if it's that long, because they're they're too busy. They don't have that much bandwidth anymore. And the number of emails coming into people's inboxes has increased exponentially in the last 5 to 10 years. So you're competing with literally hundreds and hundreds of others to have them open that email. The other problem with the newsletter idea is that people tend to send newsletters once a month. That's not a way to make yourself memorable. If you send it just once a month, people aren't going to remember from month to month who you are. By the time 30 days has passed and 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 emails have come into their inbox, they don't remember who this person is and why they signed up. So it's going to be more beneficial if you write shorter emails and you write them weekly rather than monthly epistles that go on like this. And I don't know about you, but when I used to write them that way with the big long things, I dreaded it and I put it off because it was painful to do. Little short emails are not as painful to do. They're actually kind of fun when you get into it. And you can batch them and write 10 at a time and be done for a month and a half. So shorter emails, email more often, and ask people to share. If you think this would appeal to someone else, please share my email with a friend or share this on Facebook. Make it easy on your website for them to subscribe. And we're going to look at some ways that you can do that in just a few minutes. But you want to have the form for people to sign up for your email list placed in multiple places on your website so that it's really easy for people to see it. I would put it in the footer, in the header, on the sidebar, everywhere that you can. So we'll look at some specific instances in just a second. But what I want y'all to do with this is to download it later this afternoon. And I want you to think about it as a list of places that you want to get to. So think about where you are now and then the steps that you need to take to get to the next level. And know that you're never going to get there as in a final destination. You're always growing. And as soon as you get to stage 3, you'll realize there's a stage 4 and a stage 5 as well. So it just keeps on growing, kind of like a spiral. But as soon as you take the pressure off and realize there's no rush, you don't have to have this all done tomorrow. It is a process. Just start now. It's not nearly as overwhelming. So make sure you download it and then use it as a way to identify where you are and where you need to go next. So let's see. I wanted to quickly answer a question we have here that popped in. So I don't usually in webinars stop and start a lot, but this is a little bit different. So we have everybody, we have a bunch of people on live, and I want to take questions when they are directly related to what we've just covered. So hang tight and don't get frustrated with me if I stop and start a little bit, because if it directly connects to what we just talked about, I think that's the best time to answer a question. Sally says, should we have a different email from our personal email? There are a lot of different thoughts about that, Sally, and I use studio@marygilkerson.com for my email list. And I didn't at first, and I wish I had, so that it's separate from the personal email that comes in. I have lots of email addresses. You don't need as many as I have, but it helps me to separate out the source of the emails. One reason you don't want it to be the personal email that you use with your family and friends is that you'll get this mixture in there of collectors, family, and friends, and it's hard to keep them separated. So it's just cleaner to have one for business and one for personal. So you can set it up as, it should also be whatever it is at your website address.com. So we're going to talk about the domain names in just a minute, but probably most of y'all, I think if I remember from even just looking at people's email addresses, most people have a Gmail address, actually. A lot and lots of people in the group have Gmail addresses. And you really don't want to use Gmail for your online business. So I would separate it out that way. So what we're talking about is developing a platform of your own. And one of the reasons I'm so strongly in favor of having your own website is that you own that. So when you have a website that is yours, it means that if Facebook dies tomorrow, if Instagram dies tomorrow, or if Etsy dies tomorrow, or eBay, or ArtSpan, or any of those other sites that are giving you a free art site, if they disappear tomorrow, you're okay. You have your home base, your own platform that you own. So it's really important for you to have your own platform. You control that space. You control what goes on it. They can't take it away from you like Facebook can without any warning. They cannot limit how many images go on there. So you just have many, many, many more options when you have your own website. So having a platform of your own is, I think, super important for all artists. So my goal is for you to realize the power of owning your own platform to engage your followers and to understand what you need to have a minimally viable website. So we're not having to think about going fancy, and also think about what you don't need for the minimally viable website. This helps us move from the starving artist myth to the thriving artist reality. So with a platform of your own, you've got your own space in place for marketing and selling your work. Nobody else gets a percentage. It's all yours. That means you're responsible for it all, but it means that you get to keep it all. When you are selling online, whether you're using Stripe or PayPal, PayPal is where most people start, you're going to pay a small percentage of the transaction as a fee for them to process that. And I've heard people complain bitterly about having to give PayPal their 2.9%, sometimes 3%, depending on what plan you sign up for, because they hate giving away any of their hard-earned money. But remember that PayPal handles and is the gateway for payments. So they are responsible for that money. And they have a reputation that most people are pretty comfortable with for buying. So when you use somebody like PayPal or another shopping cart that has a really strong reputation, you are adding a sense of trust and a level of trust in that transaction for your customers. Don't begrudge them their little percentage. It's not that much, and it's just the cost of doing business. The platform also gives you a way to connect and engage with your audience, and that is crucial to growing a business. And it gives you a way to create a clear customer journey or experience. So if you think about the buying journey as an experience that people have, going from becoming aware of you to engaging with you and going, I really like this person's work. I really want to own a painting by this person. That's a journey, and you want them to have a good experience the whole way. And you don't want them to come to a turning point and be confused about what they're supposed to do. So you want to keep it clear. And you want it to be transformative. The transformation in art, in buying art, is the experience of living with a work of art. So remember that you're not just trading dollars for art. People are getting the opportunity to have that transformative experience of living with art. So you are putting out into the world something that can change, truly change somebody else's life. So don't be hesitant about doing that. There's a time and a place to sell, and there's a time and a place not to sell. But don't feel guilty about trading dollars for your art. For one, it gives you the money to go buy more art supplies. And two, it gives you the material to live off of, potentially. And three, you're giving your customers the chance to experience some of the same things you did. And who are you to deny them that pleasure and that process? So keep in mind, you're doing something for them too. No matter the niche that you're in, you can start and grow your art business. So don't feel like there's not a group of customers out there for you. So for example, Christine is asking right now, would it be wise to include her jewelry with her paintings on one website? It depends on how you frame that, Christine. If you frame it as being part of creating the same kind of experience, then I think it makes lots of sense. You might need to separate if they don't connect together as far as the experience goes. You might need to have two sections on the same website, but I don't think there's a problem really with having them on the same website anymore. Then, why is it not advancing? Let's see. There we go. No matter the niche, you can, I know, I need to go to the next one. Sorry about that. It helps when you're being completely, fully aware on your slides. Website do's and don'ts. Things I want you to think about to do and things I want you to think about not to do about your hub. Remember that it's a platform of your own and that you should be having direct sales from your own website. It's okay to use those other sites like Etsy and Artspan and Saatchi, but you really want to emphasize your own site more. People's stores on Etsy have been closed down before. Etsy works for some and not for a lot of others. One of the problems with Etsy is that you still have to drive traffic to it to make it successful. And at that point, you could drive that same amount of traffic to your own site and not have to compete with the thousands of other people that are on Etsy. Next, remember that done is better than perfect. Your website will never be perfect. Mine certainly is not. It's usually in a state of 3 or 4 pages that desperately need to be corrected. That's just the way it is. They are never perfect. I used to design websites for a living, and one of the things that I loved about doing it was that it gave you immediate gratification. You got to see the change right away. The downside to that is that there are always changes that need to be made, and you feel like you should do them right away. You don't need to all the time. Remember that done is better than perfect. Keep it simple. Keep it really simple. Don't clutter stuff up. I was reviewing a friend's website the other day, and it was actually his plan for his website. And he used 4 different colors in the text. And he had at least 5 different accent colors and 3 or 4 different fonts going on that one page. I didn't know where to look, and neither would any of his customers. So you want to keep the color simple. You want to keep the text simple and the font simple. So I would use one main color and a highlight color. That highlight color would be the color of the buttons and things like that. Don't go crazy with lots of colored boxes. That's a distraction. You want your art to stand out. Use 1 to 2 fonts at the most. Don't be going in there with 5 or 6 different fonts. It's visually confusing. Use white space. Leave some clean white space around things so that people can actually see and the design can breathe, just like in a composition. So remember that a website is a composition, just like a painting is. Think about how you want your customers to feel. Use that to help you guide your color choices and your fonts. Do you want them to feel warm and glowing? Do you want them to feel connected? Do you want them to feel excited? Do you want them to feel animated? Think about making a list of words that have to do with what you want your customers to feel. And then use that as a guide in picking colors and picking fonts and deciding where to go on the layout and the theme that you're going to use. Simple design really helps you to create that feeling. So if you're using really simple design, you can pick colors that reinforce that feeling. You can pick a font that reinforces that feeling. If you're using 14 fonts, you're not creating any feeling but confusion. And one thing to remember, if you don't remember anything else, the confused client doesn't buy. So don't confuse people. Keep clarity topmost. So use a white background. Use a single column. Think about using white space and think about no more than 2 fonts. So for example, when you look here at Saatchi Art's website, look at the number of colors we see there. We have a main color and we have an accent color. The main color is that color up there in the banner, that orange. And then the accent color, the part that we know is a link to click, is in blue. And it's not the neon aqua blue that so many sites use. It's a nice, more muted, almost light sky blue. It's an ultramarine blue. So you want to think about what other successful websites are doing. So if you haven't started a website yet, or if you want to create a new website, look at what the big guys are doing, because they've already done a lot of testing, and you can kind of jump ahead of the game by looking at what they're doing. Here is UGallery, which is another large online gallery site. And again, notice how simple it is. They have the banner color at the top. They're using black and yellow, not an unusual combination at all. They've also got almost that same blue in there as a background color for the image of summer. So the black and the yellow become their brand colors. And when you see those colors, you know what to do. Helps to create that clear customer journey. What you don't need. You don't need a custom layout. You don't have to pay several $1,000s to have somebody create a custom layout for you. In fact, I would strongly discourage you from hiring somebody to do a bespoke website that is based simply on code, because that's going to be hard for you to update. You want something simple that is using WordPress or something similar to that so that you can update it. You don't necessarily need a logo and branding. Let's go back for just a second to UGallery. Now that is their logo, but look at how simple it is. It is simply their name in a font. That's all you need. Don't worry about logos and branding and special stuff yet. Just get your name on there. Pick the main color and the accent color and the main font that you're going to use consistently and go from there. You don't need a custom shopping cart or store on your site either. You can use something like Shopify very easily and set that up as a link from your website. So you don't need anything super special, but you can actually get started just with PayPal. And PayPal's business plan is free, so there's nothing to stop you. You can even install a basic shopping cart straight from using PayPal. You also don't need social proof of 10,000 followers. That's not necessarily going to make you more sales. A really devoted, smaller list of between 500 to 1,000 is going to be a whole lot more effective than a bloated list with 10,000 people on there. So don't worry about false artificial numbers, and don't ever pay for followers like buying lists. That's not going to do you any good. You need those devoted followers. You also don't need 50 paintings in a portfolio for viewers to look at. You can start with 10 paintings. You want to have them be somewhat related, you could start with 5, but you want to have them have a connection. And they need to be the best work you can put up there at the time. So you're going to be better off with 5 really good ones than 10 that have 5 good ones and 5, maybe I should include those. So keep it to the best possible stuff from right now. What you definitely need to do is to just get started. So this is my website last year. It changes fairly frequently, but you'll see there that my logo is just my name, and it's just in a font. It is not anything funky or fancy. You need categories in the menu bar. You need an easy way for people to sign up. So right there at the very top, you see that I'm inviting people to join my email list. It says, feel the light and color, connect with the experience of place, get a painting almost daily in your inbox. Get them. That is the invitation to subscribe to my email list. So you need to have that front and center on your front page. Then you can put it in all of those other places as well. You also need a domain name. The domain name is like your street address. So if you think of this as being your online portfolio site or gallery site, the domain name is the address you send people to. So it's best if it's your name. Don't name it My Little Pony Art. Don't do something cute, because cute doesn't really sell. It is going to look more professional if you brand it by your name. Most artists are branded by their name. If somebody else has already gotten your name, you can do yournameart.com or yournamestudio.com, but keep it simple and get that domain name. If you don't want to invest any money in it right now, go ahead and do a website from Blogger, and it's free. And it'll be yourname.blogger.com. But get started with that. You need to have some artwork on there. So you can put it under something called available paintings. You can call it portfolio. I wouldn't call it gallery because that's a little confusing with real galleries, but get something up there that makes it easy for people to see that you've got artwork available. Then you also want to have a buy now button on there. Don't be shy about putting that on there. PayPal makes it easy to do that. And Chris is asking, framed? Question mark. No, I don't sell my work framed online. Now, I know people who have the option when they order to order a frame at the same time, and I think that's fine to put in. But most people who are buying work online are really not that interested in buying a frame per se right then. They want to be able to frame it themselves when they get it home. So I don't put the framed price on there. It's all the unframed price. So I put the artwork up there. Make sure you have the add to cart button, and then make sure that there's also something that tells them a little bit about the artwork. That's a hook. So again, you can see where I've got the invitation under the blog about painting to join the email list. And many of you are already on there. So it's real obvious what we're talking about there. People know that that button means they're going to sign up for an email list. Then you have a form that pops up so that people can input their information, and that adds them into your mailing list on your email service provider. And we don't have time to go into the details of that today. We're going to spend a whole month on email lists later. You also need to have your about page set up. That's the minimally viable website. Get that up there and make it really simple. Your bio is just a really quick summary of who you are and why you make art. Keep it simple. Again, you can see down there at the bottom where I'm inviting people to join the email list again. So make it easy for them, and also, if possible, include a contact list as well. So we've got just a few minutes left, and I want to quickly show y'all a couple of the websites that I recommend. So for artists. So let's hop over to, here we go. FASO. I want to go through these, let's start with Squarespace. Go through these in the order of, actually FASO is easier. Let me go back there. The order of ease of use. FASO is a business that creates websites just for artists. So it is owned by artists. They make websites for artists, and they have an incredible support team. So they are one of the first places that I advise people to go to when they're starting a website. Their pricing and plans are quite reasonable because they include more than just the website. They include the email service provider for your newsletter, for your email list. It also includes the custom domain name, and it includes the hosting and a secure server. And on top of it, it's behind an incredibly strong firewall. So you got a lot of protection and support there. Their team are just a phone call away. They are fabulous people. And their gold plan is only $25 a month. I have lots of students who are on that. This is not an affiliate push either. I have no connection to them at all. So I strongly recommend their gold plan just because of how much it includes. It's a really, really good service. And they have beautiful themes that make it easy for you to just get your site up very quickly. It is not a real super tech heavy way to go. It's an easy way to go if you're not a techie person. Another way to go if you're not a techie person is Squarespace. Squarespace also has tons of different plans and tons of different themes. They're equally elegant, very, very professionally done. And they have, both of these have a shopping cart that you can include on your website. So you don't have to even go to the trouble of setting that up. It's part of that plan. So Squarespace is very easy to use, and they have some terrific artist themes. I know lots of artists who have their sites on Squarespace. It's a really, really good option. Again, a good one if you're not a techie. Last option there is if you are a little techier, then starting your own WordPress site is the way to go because it gives you ultimate control over what's going on. So with a WordPress site, you're hosting it yourself. You go by your own domain name and you maintain it all yourself. But so you have to have a little bit more tech skills than with the others. I would not go down this route if you're the least bit hesitant about tech. I would go back to Faso because they know artists, they design just for artists, and they'll hold your hand. The other option, if you really want WordPress, is to go with somebody who designs WordPress sites just for artists. Kim Bruce at artbiz.ca is who I recommend for that. She's an artist and a web designer in Calgary, Alberta, who works with lots of artists, actually some who are already in the group. So all of those options will work. The main thing is just to get started. Keep it simple and not overwhelming. So we've got about 5 minutes where we can grab questions if people have any. So let me turn this off and go back to our checklist here. Is our image. Let me see if we have any other questions. Catherine says, do Squarespace or Faso have a market, or is it all on us to push? Faso does a good job, I think, of rotating the websites out and doing a little bit of promotion on that. But if you're going to have a website, you are pretty much going to have to do the marketing. And the reality is, on any of those other sites that are telling you they push your stuff, you have to do it there too. There is no such thing as a site where you can pop your stuff up and people are just going to show up in droves. It just doesn't work that way. Etsy used to work that way about 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, when it was not quite as crowded. You didn't have to work hard to get your audience. Now there's so many people on there that even if you are in the part that's being featured, you're going to be one among thousands. So you really do have to do your own promotional marketing no matter where you are. Don't ever sit back and rely on somebody else. There are lots and lots of ways to generate traffic and to get an audience to your site. Don't rely on other marketers to do it for you. Facebook can help do that. Instagram can help do that. All of those can drive traffic to your website. I sell via both of those on a fairly frequent basis. Not directly on those, but people come from there to my website and then they buy. So most of my traffic comes from social media that way or from my email list. So it really is, no matter where you are, on us to push it. There are things that will help, but we have to do that. It's not going to happen all by itself. Roz says, how do you know if your website is working? How long before you should expect a sale? That depends on how much traffic is coming in, Roz, and how well your work is known. Roughly, the conversion rate online is about 1 to 2%. So that would mean that you would have to have 100 people looking and thinking about buying before you would make a sale. And the way that you know that your website is working is by looking at the traffic to the page. And you can see that in Google Analytics, but you can also see that in some of those providers. They have some tools that let you look in there and see that. So another way to measure that is the engagement, because you could have 100 people coming in, and if they're just passing right on through, they're not going to buy. But 100 engaged viewers, you're more likely to make a sale. Now, that's not going to happen with your first 100, but you got to drive a good bit of traffic to get sales through there. So watching your traffic and making sure you're getting a steady stream in there is the way that you make sales. And actually, through the email list and your postings on social media, will do a lot of that heavy lifting for you, because people will be prompted to go look. And usually that initial posting is the thing that really catches them and hooks them in. So there's no easy answer to how long before you should expect a sale. It's really all depends. Depends on how big your list is, how big your following is, how well you know your target market. Because if you're sending all of your stuff to people who are not interested in what you're selling, it's not going to work. It's going to fall flat. So it all builds on each other. But the way to get started is to go through stage 1 and get that all set up. And to realize that any business, when it starts, takes a while to make a profit. I think the rule of thumb out in the real world, rather than the online world, is something like 2 to 3 years. And the reality is it can take 2 to 3 years in the online world as well. Sales don't start happening overnight. You're not going to make a big profit tomorrow. It's slow and steady wins the race. I know people have made a really big splash really fast and then it all disappears. And when you see people like Ashley Longshore, who makes a ton off of Instagram, she's been doing it for 20 years. Not 20, but she's been online for 20 years. Instagram hadn't been around that long. But she works at it. She's doing it every single day. So you really have to be on top of it. Adriana says, I have a WordPress site and I use Square when I do markets. So I added WooCommerce to my website since it will sync with Square. I like Square too a lot. I use Square, PayPal, and Stripe. She says, I'm terrified to take that final step to sync the two because I'm afraid I don't have my Square set up properly. You can test it. I believe that they have a sandbox, Adriana. So try running it under sandbox and you can test it with like a $1 sale to make sure it really works. Talk to the people at Square and they'll help walk you through that. So it really does work. And I would go ahead and dive in. I felt that exact same anxiety when I first hooked up my shopping cart, but the tech people, the support staff are there to help you. That is all we're going to have time for today. I know that people will have other questions, so feel free to post your questions over in the membership, and we'll dive into those conversations because this is our theme and focus for the month is websites, getting those platforms up and going, and then growing them beyond where they were. So thank y'all for joining me today. It has been a pleasure. I look forward to talking with you again soon. Happy painting, everybody. Bye-bye for now.